music, athletics, arts, and entertainment. The Desert Tiger Podcast with Colton Geschwantner.
That's right, that's me. I am Colton G, and you are tuning in to the Desert Tiger Podcast. And let me tell you, brother, wherever you're tuning in from, whoever you are, and whatever you're listening on, we are extremely thankful for you tuning into this episode 27 of the Desert Tiger Podcast. And today, our very special guest, let me tell you about him. He's a writer, he's a producer, he's a director, he's an actor, he's a jack of all trades, he's a badass, and he's tearing through town. His name is Danny Mac, and he is about to hit you with his brand new movie, Heel Kick. Now let me tell you, some are saying it is the best there is, the best there ever was, and the best there ever will be. Some are claiming this is the funniest wrestling movie to ever hit the market, and I am one of those people. We're going to sit down with Mr. Danny Mac himself, and we're going to discuss how he came up with the idea for Heel Kick. We're going to discuss what kind of training and preparation did Danny have to go through in order to prepare for writing a movie such as Heel Kick. What kind of things did he have to go through to prepare for the role of Reggie, the lead character in the movie Heel Kick? We're going to talk about some chest slaps, we're going to talk about some back bumps, and we're going to have a whole lot of laughs, brother. It's going to be a great time. So strap in and enjoy the ride on the Desert Tiger Podcast, baby. Alright, but in all seriousness, welcome to episode 27 of the DTP. Like I said, I am extremely thankful for you tuning in. Like I said, our very special guest this episode is Mr. Danny Mac, and we are going to talk to him about how he hooked up with ECCW out in Vancouver, British Columbia, how he trained with them, how he prepared, how he got ready for his role and to write the movie Heel Kick, and like I said, I actually do think this is the funniest wrestling movie out there. If you guys are fans of things like Trailer Park Boys, if you're into that mockumentary style, then you guys definitely got to get on this film. It is absolutely hilarious, and you are going to be rolling on the floor. You guys are going to be laughing your ass off. You didn't think it was possible. You thought you already bumped your ass off in the ring, but no, Heel Kick is what's finally gonna do that rump in. Alright, so before we get into our interview with Mr. Danny Mac, we need to take care of a little bit of business, and we need to play some music. So first off, I need to tell you about a wrestling-inspired streetwear company that was started by a WWE superstar and ex-TNA wrestler, a man who trains all around the globe, who travels all around the world, taking on men and women of all kinds. I'm talking about Mr. Al Snow. That's right, Mr. Al Snow created a wrestling-inspired streetwear company to bring his love of both things together so that everybody could share that love. And if you guys head on over to the Collar and Elbow web store, you're going to get yourself 10% off when you're checking out if you use the code DTP. It's that simple. DTP gets you 10% off. You guys also know that I am a big audiobook guy. You guys know that I'm constantly working, whether I'm driving to go ref wrestling, whether I'm driving to go get an interview, whether I'm working, building something in construction, or whether I'm even just preparing for an interview. You guys know that I love audiobooks, so that's why we hooked up with Audible to get you 1 free month of the Audible service and 1 free audiobook to get you started. So if you go on over to www.audible.com/DTP, once again that is www.audible.com/DTP, and you're going to get yourself 1 free audiobook and 1 free month of the Audible service. How killer is that, guys? Alright, we've already told you who our guest is. I've already shot probably my worst wrestling promo that I'm ever going to give to you guys in the world. And now we have to play some music. So I've played a couple shows with these guys back when I played in Regina in a pop punk band. And the band that I'm going to play for you guys today is Cold Front. Cold Front recently announced that they're going to be taking, which is probably going to be a permanent hiatus, which means that they are done as far as they know. This saddens me very much, so I figured I would play a little bit of Cold Front's music to help celebrate their efforts, to help celebrate their art, and everything that they've done. So we're going to play the lead track off of their latest album, the title song, the first single. We're going to play you this song right now by Cold Front. It's called Float Around.
So if we're both done crying, don't you talk to me again, because our rooms are flooded. Can't sleep in a place like this. What is it worth to me? Don't look at me the same way, and that makes it sting. I wanna talk about what you said and all the pieces you took from me. And as you float around my head, cast me down on what I said. I think it's time we try it again. Just never heard me say it. So if we're both done crying, well, don't you talk to me again, because our rooms are flooded. We can't sleep in a place like this, and if you're stuck inside it, we can't keep holding on to me. We're just two different people taking the same road. No sleep, there's no peace, there's nowhere, it's all bleak. There's nothing left for me to say, so now I spin around here. And as you float around my head, I'll spun up and misled. I think it's time we try it again. You just never heard me say it. So if we're both done crying, well, don't you talk to me again, because our rooms are flooded. We can't sleep in a place like this, and if you're stuck inside it, we can't keep holding on to me. We're just two different people taking the same road. I swear I still talk about it, like it means something. I swear I still talk about it, like it means something. So if we're both done crying, well, don't you talk to me again, because our rooms are flooded. We can't sleep in a place like this, and if you're stuck inside it, we can't keep holding on to me. We're just two different people taking the same road. So if we're both done crying, because our rooms are flooded. If you're stuck inside it, we're just two different people taking the same road.
the Desert Tiger Podcast.
All right, we are here with Danny Mac, the man, the brains, the entire operation process behind the new film Heel Kick. How's it going, Danny?
Pretty good. How are you, man?
I am doing awesome. All right, so let's kick things off right off at the beginning. How did you get into acting? Where did it all start off?
Well, I've always been into it. I wish I had a better answer than that. But I've just always been performing since I was, 3 or 4 years old, and then eventually I fell in love with writing as well, which I didn't realize was going to turn into a love of screenwriting eventually. But I always felt that writing and performing went hand in hand because you could, create really entertaining sketches or plays or characters and then present them to everybody. So this ranged from anywhere from, doing creative writing in class, in like the first grade, all the way up to participating in plays in the Fringe Festival in my hometown of Edmonton, or auditioning for film and television out here in Vancouver, where I live now. So, yeah, it's kind of been a lifelong pursuit.
Okay, so when did you actually, start getting into, acting seriously? Did you do plays in high school? When did you start actually, pursuing it?
Yeah, I didn't go to a very arts-friendly high school, so it just seemed like less and less of an option as the years went by. But I was always still, training and keeping, joining an agency in mind, even though that my hometown of Edmonton, it's not really synonymous with a film or television community. It does have a good theater scene, though. So friends of mine, we were... We would film YouTube sketches and put that stuff online for our friends, and eventually, we realized that our real love was film and movies and television. So after doing a play in the Fringe Festival and doing our YouTube videos, we decided to start writing our own features, and then we thought, hey, if we write this cheap enough, we could do it ourselves and then sell it and see if we can become profitable from that. So, yeah, that was about 10 years ago, if not 12 years ago now.
Okay, so, your acting credits started with your own writing as well? You were writing...
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, awesome. So, where did that all start off? What was the first thing that you actually, wrote, produced, and actually, got to put together?
We did a couple of short films, and when I say we, I'm usually referring to my fellow producer, who's also stars in Heel Kick. His name's Cooper Bebo. He plays Roger in the film, the documentarian. But we'd done that. We'd done a Fringe play and some other things like that. But then we decided to write a feature called Love Hate, and then we shot that. And we were able to sell it to a Canadian broadcaster after we got some money together. So we put both of our own life savings into that movie in our early 20s, not knowing how difficult it is to get your film out there. We were so naive, but I think that actually helped us. So yeah, that's probably the first big project that we did, in terms of we wrote it, we produced it, we star in it, and we edited the thing and eventually sold it ourselves.
Okay, so how hard was that to actually get that started? Was
impossible, I'd say. Fucking impossible. Yeah, it was seriously, if we knew how difficult it was going to be, we might not have even begun.
Yeah.
It's we were like, hey, let's write this thing, and we can be in it, and we can put our friends in it, and we can shoot it on just whatever, and then we can edit it, and then we can just sell it to people. And we thought this would all take 9 months, but it ended up taking 3.5 years from when we started working on it and writing it to when we were able to get it out there and do theatrical screenings. So yeah, man, there was a steep learning curve because we never went to film school either. So we were figuring a lot out, trial by fire. And yeah, it was very difficult. I'd say a 12 out of 10 on the difficulty scale.
Yeah, sounds like you guys were kind of flying by the seams of your pants for sure.
Sure were.
All right, so tell me a little bit about Love Hate. Like, what's the premise about that film? Like,
That was like our own version of like a 40-year-old virgin, or like for 20-somethings, right? So it's about these three friends, and they're all in different stages of relationship hell. And it was just kind of like, like our attempt at, it's like at trying to make something a little sweet, but movies had a lot of gross out humor and shock jokes at the time. So we were really just sort of a product of our environment when we were trying to shape together something that we thought might resonate with people. And, we grew up so, those are such formative years, your early 20s, and by the time the film was done, we were like, well, this doesn't even feel like our personalities. And so I think that's why it's important to just keep having new projects on the go all the time, because your voice is going to evolve and change, and I don't know, it's just, and also to just, you're not going to understand what your own voice is unless you start getting stuff out there and realizing, oh, that is representative of me and my talents or whatever, or it isn't. So that's kind of where we ended up with that film. So we treated it like our film school.
Huh. That's pretty awesome. Like, a lot of people would go the traditional route and usually would end up like in a news office or like behind like a light or anything. Like, you guys just straight up like all out, balls out, like went for it.
Yeah, we believed that we could do it, and that was the most important part. And that was important, and the other important part is nothing else sounded fun to us at all. Neither of us cared if, we bought a new car. Neither of us wanted to go backpack and travel around Europe. Neither of us wanted to put a down payment down on a condo. So, like, all the things that our friends were doing, none of that seemed cool to us. We still wanted to create, and even if it was a failure financially or however you want to gauge or measure what a failure or success would have meant for, like, a really tiny independent film, we didn't care. It was just sort of the only option for us, and that's what kept us going when it was so tough.
Okay. Awesome. So how was the reception for that film? Was it sort of what you guys had expected, or...
Honestly, it was just like a very small opening. We had a couple of screenings in our hometown and one in Yellowknife where our director was born. And we won a local festival for out of Edmonton, and we got into I think one or two film festivals. But then we were just so anxious to move on that after we got our broadcast deal, we just kind of put it to the wayside. But it was for the people that saw it, which are a very small handful of people. They enjoyed it for what it was, from what I remember. But it's not even really out there anymore. So it's tough to give a straight answer to that.
Fair enough. Okay, so that was while you guys were still living out in Edmonton then?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so did you start getting into TV as well while you were in Edmonton, or did you move to Vancouver first?
No, we moved to Vancouver as soon as 6 months after the movie was finally done and out there into the world. So then we all got agents as actors. 5 of us moved out here together. And then we started participating instead of creating in the world of film and television.
Okay, so how was the difference in that for you to go from being in control of everything to just like coming in and playing just like an off role? Like,
I think it was cool, like being like doing absolutely everything and running around like a chicken with its head cut off on the set of your own film really does not prepare you for how much sitting around and waiting you're going to do when you're on set for like a TV show or something. Mm-hmm. Because you just have one thing to do and you don't know when you're going to do it, and it could be a 12-hour day before you get to the scene. So, but on the other hand, you're able to focus 100% of your efforts on your performance, and so there's, it definitely has that element going for it. But I was so used to juggling a ton of things, mm-hmm. But by this point I was like, oh, I can just read the script and relax in my trailer. This is nice.
Nice. Okay, so between playing a lawyer, a fireman, a cop, a DEA officer, which one of those TV roles has sort of been your favorite or best experience?
Geez, I don't know. It's a good question. I really liked being on Bates Motel because it was such a good show. The firefighter role, I think that was from, which one was? I think that's from Wayward Pines. And that scene actually got cut from the show. And it's a fun story because that's one of the first TV things that I ever booked. And I remember telling all my friends, like, hey, I'm on this show. I got to meet M. Night Shyamalan, and he directed me in this scene. And then it took that show, like, I want to say close to 3 years for it to finally come out after we shot that first episode. No kidding. Like, it was in post forever. And then when it finally came out, my scene was cut. And it was this huge lead up to it. Every one of my friends and family knew my one line of dialogue because they'd say, what do you say in that scene again? And we just went over it and over it. And we'd all watch it. And it wasn't even in there. But it's still my first. I still consider it to be, even though it doesn't exist. It's like the kid who says he has a beautiful girlfriend up in Canada. It may not be real, but it's real to him. Damn it.
So true. So true. And it also kind of helped prepare you, I guess, for being on the set and all those other things prior to, sort of like a practice run.
It all ties in, yeah. There's so many learning experiences for anything that you're on, any set that you're on. So, yeah, it's all school to me.
All right, awesome. So let's get into your latest project, that being Heel Kick.
Mm-hmm.
How was the idea for that born?
Well, I liked wrestling growing up in my very early teens, and then I sort of grew out of it, but I still loved the backstage element of the business, and I found it fascinating, and I would still read wrestlers' autobiographies, even though I wasn't watching any WWE or pro wrestling at all. I just thought, what a fascinating subculture and what an interesting world. My old cousin also loved wrestling, and he actually went to a pretty prestigious wrestling school. But this was after decades of talking about doing it, and then only 2 weeks into it, he decides it's not for him anymore, and he doesn't want to do it. Yeah. And it was so interesting to hear how that training, what just turned him off about it, and how it was different than he thought it was going to be. And he just told me about some of the other people in class with him, and how, while he was doing it, he would tell me, some of these people are delusional. They don't exercise, they don't eat properly, and they think they're gonna get huge one day, and they do no hard work. And I just thought that was I'd like to follow those guys, and I guess that's kind of where the idea came from.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. All right, so before we move on to the Heel Kick, I kind of want to touch on this while you said it. Who was your favorite wrestlers growing up, and what is your favorite wrestling autobiography?
Favorite wrestlers growing up. The first kind of feud, or maybe even wrestlers that I saw when I started watching, were Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Ooh. And being from Alberta, that's Bret Hart country. But then I thought Shawn Michaels was just so funny at the same time, and it was weird based on whatever country that they were wrestling in, they would get booed or cheered, whether they were in Canada or the U.S. And I don't know, that drew me into it because, well, everyone knows wrestling is staged. Here's what appears to be two countries going at it based on these two guys representing them. It was just a weird time to get into it, and I really liked that. So those guys are kind of my first and autobiography. I think Mick Foley wrote the best autobiography, personally, his first book, and I reread it when I was doing research for Heel Kick when I really started getting into it. But it's fascinating, and I always like hearing stories from people who aren't who you would expect to make it and blossom in that industry, because you look at the kind of people that are on top of the game, and they're either just behemoth monsters or, essentially, fitness models. And Mick Foley's a very just regular kind of schlumpy guy, but he worked harder than anyone and proved that he was just as crazy as anyone. And he's really funny and really smart, so I think his book was excellent, and it holds up to this day from what I remember.
I completely agree. I've read quite a few of the Mick Foley books, and I've enjoyed every single one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read his second book as well, and I read Stone Cold's and The Rock's and Goldberg's and a bunch of other ones. But yeah, I think it's just because Foley is such a good storyteller, and he's just a pretty multi-talented person. That's obviously going to translate onto the page better. So that's the one I would recommend.
Definitely, and I think Mick Foley had the pleasure of also having no ghostwriter really attached to it, whereas WWE was sort of in control of everyone else's autobiographies at the time, and they all had.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember Foley talking about writing it when no one had even asked him to, and he was writing it on a plane. That's where he began writing it on the way to a show or something. And this was before every wrestler had an autobiography.
Yeah.
And thought it would be interesting. He wrote one. It became a New York Times bestseller. And all of a sudden, you got to imagine that Vince McMahon or the guys at the top are saying, hey, if anyone else wants us to publish your book for you, we'll get a writer in there and we'll help you do it. So I think that snowballed the thing.
Oh, yeah, they started producing a ridiculous amount of biographies around that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
probably.
Oh, continue.
I was just going to say maybe too many in a short period of time because, they became a little overwhelming which one to catch up with. But, I mean, all those guys have really fascinating stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do, but it kind of oversaturated the market at the time because how many of them can you read at once?
Yeah, it's very true. Even though I think I might have somehow done it, but
That's awesome. I mean, the only other person whose biography who kind of felt like the least ghostwritery was Daniel Bryan's, and that's only because the ghostwriter wrote his own section. And then Daniel Bryan just wrote his own section after that where he entirely gave no fucks.
That's cool. I'd rather, read someone's own words, even if they aren't as eloquently placed as if they had a ghostwriter than the opposite. Because, you want ideas to be able to get across, coherently. But, of course, it's nice to actually identify with that person's voice. But I guess that's what a good ghostwriter is going to do for you anyway. So,
Very true. All right, let's get back into Heel Kick here. So, how did the writing process start out? Did you get the script going pretty easily? Did it come to you easily? How much research did you actually have to put into it? And how did the story come together?
I did as much research as I could, just reading things online, trying to get back into the world of pro wrestling, reading a lot of autobiographies like we discussed and watching documentaries. But some of the script I couldn't even write until I'd done more hands-on research. The movie is about two guys starting wrestling training, and I didn't really know what that looked like. So I had to research pro wrestling organizations in the city, in Vancouver, and meet up and see who was going to be a good fit, and then see if they would also be willing to train me, and then if so, if they would want to be involved in the film in some way. So there was entire chunks of the script that were just a brief description until I could actually figure out what that world was. So it was easy enough for me to figure out the character arcs and where they're going to be and what things they have to, where they have to get to emotionally. Yeah. But I didn't want to make a movie about independent wrestling without knowing how that world worked. So a lot of training, once I began training, informed how the script would be completed.
Okay, so as someone who refs wrestling and has taken a bump or two, how real was wrestling training once you actually got into it?
Yeah, for me, it felt pretty damn real. Like, just for some context to those listening, like, I played one of the backyard wrestlers in the film, and in real life, I had to train for 6 months to do what we see in the movie. So I was legitimately in training with everyone else. It wasn't some actor's crash course. I just inserted myself into the regular classes with the ECCW, and I don't know. Some people, I asked everyone, like, how did your first bump feel? And a bump is just, when you fall and hit the mat. And a lot of people, an overwhelming amount of people would say, it wasn't that bad. But my first bump sucked. It was brutal. And I would ask everyone else, like, really? That wasn't rough to you? And they say, yeah, it kind of was not great. And I was like, I'm going to get broken in half. And the only thing that made me feel better was I was listening to an interview with Kurt Angle, who's an Olympic gold medalist and a WWE Hall of Famer, and he said his first bump hurt so bad that he quit wrestling for like a year. And he convinced to go back into it. So at least I'm in good company complaining about my first bump. But yeah, it's you find new things that hurt after a while. You do get used to taking bumps. Oddly enough, I missed taking bumps, if that's not the craziest shit you've ever heard. Like, once we stopped shooting and I didn't need to train anymore, I missed the feeling of getting just slammed down onto the mat. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know what that says about me.
It's an adrenaline rush. I can completely understand it. Not only are you acting live, but it's just everything in the moment just flows to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like theater you've got to bleed for. It just feels all the more intense.
I can completely agree with that. It's one of the reasons why I love it.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
Alright, you guys know what time it is already. It's time for us to pay a few more bills, play a little bit more music, and then we're gonna get right back in the ring with Danny Mac to talk a little bit more about heel kick and a few other things. Alright, so first off and foremost, you guys know I gotta talk a little bit more about that collar and elbow. Have you guys checked out the web store yet? They have just dropped that spring line and it is fresh. Have you guys seen the imitation tee? Woo! It is awesome. 2 tigers, kind of in like a little yin-yang shape. I mean, you kind of beat me to that one, so I'm going to have to change it up a bit. They got that eagle diving on the wrist tee. They got that wrestling union tee, blue and yellow. Looks super smooth. And maybe you're into that grizzled. Maybe you're into that traditional look. Well, if you're into any of the new line on collar and elbow, or if you're into any of the previous stuff they drop, as I told you before in the show, and like I'm about to tell you again, you can save yourself a solid 10% off any order you guys make at the Collar and Elbow web store simply by using the code DTP when you guys are checking out. It's that simple. It's that easy. You guys save yourself 10% off some sick wrestling-inspired streetwear. You guys are going to look fresh. You're going to support the Cauliflower Alley. You're going to support wrestlers all over the world. Everybody wins. It's a great time. Everyone's happy. So why not head on over to that Collar and Elbow web store, check out that new spring line, use the code DTP when you're checking out, save yourself 10%, and get yourself some fresh new clothes. Alright, before we tell you about our other sponsor, before we pay the rest of our bills, you guys know I gotta play you a little bit more cold front. That's right, we got more. Oh yeah, baby. And this next song is called So Typical.
I'm wasting my time again.
Alright, you guys, it's about that time for our Audible audiobook of the week. And for our Audible audiobook of the week, we are going to feature, yes, that's right, yes, the autobiography of Daniel Bryan. There is a ghostwriter, but Daniel Bryan does not give a single fuck about that, and just writes his own parts completely separate from the ghostwriter, just leaving the ghostwriter to completely sound like a narrator the entire time, because Daniel Bryan gives no shits, and that's what makes Yes such an awesome read and such an awesome listen. And I'm going to tell you how you guys can possibly get Yes in audiobook form for free. What? That's right, free! If you head on over to www.audible.com/DTP, what was that? That was www.audible.com/DTP. You can sign up for the Audible service. You're going to get yourself 1 free month of Audible plus 1 free audiobook. You can use that on whatever you want, whether you're into science fiction, fantasy, whether you're into nonfiction, whether you're into biographies, whatever you're into, chances are they have it. They have literally thousands on thousands on thousands of audiobooks in this service. So why don't you head on over to www.audible.com/DTP today. Get yourself that 1 free month. Get yourself that free audiobook and use it on something like Yes by Daniel Bryan. Alright, without further ado, we're going to get back in the ring with my man, Danny Mac.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
Alright, so once you actually got into it, got training, how was the ECCW crew? I know that Scotty Mac is one of the big guys in the film. Who else did you work with? How was your experiences with all those people?
Also in the film, Scotty Mac is our head trainer in the film, as he kind of was in real life too, along with Ravenous Randy, who was, I think, one of the last Stampede wrestling champions and one of the last people to train in the famous Hart family dungeon in Calgary before it closed. So he has a lot of experience and a cool lineage that he comes from. As well, Sid Sylum was in the movie and one of our big trainers as well. And people who weren't in the film were still responsible for putting us through the ringer quite a bit. Dave Bishop and Nicole Matthews and Artemis Spencer. So we were so fortunate to have really talented people train us all the time, and we were training with people that would go on to do great things. And I think the Bollywood boys from the ECCW who are now the Singh brothers in WWE, they were there at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's right. The ECCW produces a lot of great talent. Daniel Bryan came out of there at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I was training with Chelsea Green, who's Laurel Van Ness from Impact Wrestling at the same time. And, so, not only are the teachers superb and have decades of experience between them, but the people in class, the ones who stick around are serious about it. And so I had the benefit of working with a ton of great people.
Awesome. That is fantastic. If you had to pick a favorite wrestler from who you got to work with, who would you have to say would be the top?
I don't know. I'm not going to pick Scotty by default because I think we're too close, and it might fog my memory of how good or harsh he really was at the time. But I don't know, man. I think Sid Sylum and Ravenous Randy, they would train us together usually.
Yeah.
And I love those classes with those two because they were really supportive and they really broke things down in a way that you could understand if you're not necessarily an athletic type.
Yeah.
But they knew how to push you and they knew when to hold back and they knew how to make you comfortable. So, we weren't often in a situation where, the students felt like freaked out to be in the ring. Everyone is pretty level-headed and doesn't have a chip on their shoulder. There'd be a few days where like a trainer was not in a good mood and you would get your ass whooped. And I'm not going to say no one, like passed out or no one threw up or nothing like that, because those days definitely did happen. But for the most part, I found it to be a really great, partnership and formed some really good relationships with these people.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
All you can ask for, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, did the filming of Heel Kick start like while you guys were in training, or did that start happening like afterwards?
It was all over itself. I trained for 3 months, and then we started shooting the movie, and then we didn't shoot the final scene of the film, which is a live match at a live show, for 3 more months. I trained for another 3 months, and then we went back once myself and Chris Wilcox, who plays Maurice, once we were confident enough to do that. So, yeah, it essentially only took like a month to shoot the movie.
Okay.
But it took place over like 3 months and with 3 months of training before then.
Okay, so like quite a bit of time invested into preparing for it and getting to know what you're getting into and everything, which is very admirable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what were some of the challenges you encountered while filming Heel Kick?
Anytime you're going to do an independent film, I guess getting the money together is always a challenge. So, I was still knocking on some investors' doors when we were already into the first week of shooting with money that, we should have had already. But it all came in and worked out just fine. Another challenge was that final scene of the movie, because in that live wrestling show, those aren't extras in the crowd. Those are actual fans going to an ECCW show.
Yeah.
We just inserted our match into one of their real shows. So we had to be good enough that we could entertain them, and we wouldn't be able to call cut and get it from different angles because, again, these aren't extras. We weren't going to order them around or tell them how to react. It was important to us that we got a legitimate indie wrestling crowd and their real reaction to our match. So we had quadruple the amount of cameras that day, and we tried to plan for it as best as possible, and we pulled it off. But I think that was definitely our most nerve-wracking day. There would be no second chances there. If we missed a camera angle, if we missed a move, if the people who were not supposed to get booed got booed from the crowd, that was going to be a trouble to fix in editing. So everything had to go perfectly. It basically had to be a perfect opening night of a ballet that has never been rehearsed before, is the way that I like to explain it. So, yeah, we had a lot of pressure on us. I'd say that was the biggest challenge.
Okay, awesome. So did you guys kick off the show? Or you like mid-card? Like where were you inserted?
First thing. We were the very first match, yeah.
Oh, wow. So you guys had to actually like set the bar.
Yeah, we we tried our best, and we did pretty damn good. And I'd through the years been able to talk to some of the fans who went to that show, and they're diehard ECCW fans up here, and they all said that, they thought it was just part of the regular show, They didn't really think twice about the film cameras being there or anything, so.
Cool. So did everybody actually, like, have a decent reaction to the match then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you see it in the film, that's the answer right there. That's their legitimate reaction, so.
Awesome.
So yeah, it definitely worked out. Okay,
cool. So, like, what were some of your favorite parts of that match? Like,
I won't even say, because some of my favorite parts are in the film and they're spoilery. But yeah, there's a few big moments that were just cool to finally do, and one in particular marked literally the end of shooting. So it adds special resonance to me. So they'll be easy to spot if you check out the film.
Okay, definitely. I have been trying to check out the film for like the last 4 days, but for some reason PayPal will not let me pay iTunes.
Oh, geez. Well, it's also on Amazon and Google Play. I don't know if PayPal can make that an easier experience for you over there, but...
Who knows? I'll have to try it out, because I definitely want to check out the film.
Yeah, I would love for you to see it.
All right, so from what I've seen in the reviews of the film, you guys have sort of taken like a Trailer Park Boys sort of mockumentary style to filming. What made you decide on that style of presentation, and was there any difficulty with trying to do things that way?
I love mockumentaries, and they also feel inherently Canadian, even though they're not. But I thought that it would work well for this, especially because we didn't have time to do shot lists, and we wanted a lot of improvisation to be allowed on set. So I don't know, just having someone hold a camera and kind of run with the action seemed like the best bet. Especially for, scenes when we're trying to capture the guys at wrestling school running around. You don't really know what's going to happen. So it just fit everything much better. And, there's a whole storyline about the actual documentarian and heel kick coming a little closer with the wrestlers. And that always just stemmed from how much I love being on set and working on a film with your friends and how everyone becomes a family afterwards. So an easy way to bring that across is to make the film crew an actual part of the film. Mm-hmm. And it actually only made things easier because, if the boom mic was in the shot, guess what? You don't have to do that take again because it just looks more like a documentary. So there would be times when I wanted there to be a boom mic in the shot and things to look a little uglier just so that it would play more as a documentary. And after we had done some screenings across North America, we'd do a Q&A after, and at almost all the screenings, someone would put up their hand and say, I thought that this was a documentary until just this moment. So, I don't know. I loved it, and some people have compared it to Trailer Park Boys. We get a lot of people comparing it to Spinal Tap, and really the biggest inspiration was The Office, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So a couple people have pointed that out as well.
Okay, cool. So... talking about like the things that inspired it, what did you draw your inspiration from besides like say The Office or Spinal Tap or...
I mean, those are the big ones. There's another Canadian independent mockumentary called Fubar, which is anyone who's seen it knows how special of a movie that is. How
amazing,
specific it is. So I took a lot from all of those things because I just thought they were weird and they work so well. And The Office didn't really pick up until Steve Carell had a few mega movie hits on his hands either. And so I'm not even sure if people gave that show a chance because they realized how sharp and subtle the comedy was, or if all of a sudden it's because there's movie stars on the show. Mm-hmm. But I just thought that really underplayed, almost dull delivery was so funny. And that's what you're going to get from all those films, from anywhere from Spinal Tap up to The Office. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So, did you end up what was your biggest did you have any big bruises? Did you get injured at all during the training process or filming process? Was everything pretty safe?
Everything was pretty safe because, we took training seriously and our teachers are really good. But, I got knocked unconscious one day. I didn't duck low enough for a big clothesline. Someone took a mighty swing at me and I didn't get low enough, so it just clocked me right in the top of the head. So I was out for a second or two there. And then I think Chris, who plays Maurice, he blew his knee out really close to shooting. Mm-hmm. When we were in the ring. So we were like, uh-oh, I hope this guy can walk by the time the cameras start rolling. And then, obviously bumps and bruises along the way, but no serious injuries.
Okay, awesome. That's good. So you get to, you've worked with a lot of the same people on, say, Love, Hate, Heel Kick, and some of your other projects that you've possibly been working on. Mm-hmm. So... a lot of people don't get that. So how does that make you feel? Is it a privilege? Is it an honor? How does, being around people constantly and, knowing who they are and, their styles and everything, how does that benefit filming something like Heel Kick?
I think hugely, because if you have a good rapport with the actors and the crew and everything like that, just you're going to understand everyone's workflow and you're going to get better performances out of people if they have a certain comfort level with each other, especially in a comedy where you want to trust each other's timing and someone's ability to set you up for a joke or to take it home. So Yeah, it just all goes back to collaborating with people who have the same level of weird as you do, and you just want to stay on their wavelength and vice versa, so that you can keep making stuff that speaks to you, and then hopefully other people gravitate towards that as well. So yeah, I mean, I always advise people to start, just messing around with their friends if they're trying to look to where to get started. Find your goofy buddies that only you guys think certain things are funny, and then turn that into something, and then you'd be surprised how many people will appreciate it if you can get your voice out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, so besides the final scene, the match, do you have a favorite scene from the film?
I really like, there's a big, we call it the steroid scene. It takes place in Reggie's bathroom. Just the reaction of the crowd in the screenings when we would play that scene was just the weirdest roller coaster, a mixture of worry and then laughter and then shock and then fear and then laughter again. So that one just, I can still hear the sounds of the crowd watching it. So that one holds special resonance to me, as well as that was one of the first times where we did a scene and after we had finished shooting it, it was so fun, and then the crew just started applauding, and we're like, okay, let's do that like 10 more times. Let's do this until it's not fun anymore. And so that was just one of those scenes that it could almost be its own. You could almost make a short film out of just that one scene. And it tells a lot about the characters as well, but it's also, it's just one of those things where when you think about professional wrestling, what stuff comes to mind, and I knew I had to have a scene like that in Heel Kick if I was to do people's imaginations justice.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay, so what would you like to see from Heel Kick? You've already gotten quite a few really big reviews, on IMDb. You guys have an amazing rating. What would you like to see possibly more from Heel Kick? You guys, where's the bar? What would you like to happen?
I don't think it's any filmmaker's goal to be a cult classic, because that generally means a movie didn't pick up steam until much later, and then it's revered, but it might be too late by then. There's a lot of negativity that goes along with the term cult classic. But in this case, I think that would be very cool, and dare I say we're on our way to doing that. Obviously, the movie's only been out for just over a month, and it's still really fresh, and people are enjoying it. So we're kind of in this honeymoon phase with it right now. So we just want to get as many people to buy the film and check it out and support independent film and independent wrestling as possible, and just see how many more good reviews we can rack up. Yeah, it is pretty astounding how good that was, especially when I think back to how long it took us to edit the film and wondering, are these jokes even funny anymore? Does this movie even make sense? You just watch something so many times. It's like when you say a word over and over and it loses its meaning. So to get it out there and have people say that they loved it, God, it was a long time coming, but we were very happy to hear those reactions.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you guys were able to have a warm reception, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I think if we could be known as the funniest wrestling movie of all time, that would be great. And even just one of the best wrestling movies of all time. There's not a ton of them, but there are some not so good ones out there, and there's some very good ones out there. And I think that Heel Kick belongs at the very top with all the other great ones. But I'll leave that to other people to decide, I guess.
True. It's you. Everybody holds it in their own esteem, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so do you have any other future plans with writing, producing, filming, acting? What's in the works for Danny Mac?
I'm always auditioning and acting in everything big and small out here. That seems interesting to me. As a performer, and in the meantime, I'm writing all the time. So of any genre and any sort. But I would like to write another thing soon that is like Heel Kick that I think that I could shoot myself. And it's just a really good way to grow as a budding director, which is, arguably a thing that I could learn the most about still. And you always learn so much more about producing once you produce a film. And so I think just always doing some kind of writing or some kind of performing to stay sharp. And then once the next thing clicks and I know exactly what it's going to be, I'll be poised and ready to make it as good as possible. But I have a couple ideas kicking around. I won't say just yet, but I could see a spiritual successor to Heel Kick being not too far off on the horizon.
Awesome. So, what are some of your interests outside of acting?
Let's see here. God, I'm such a boring actor guy who just his life is consumed with this stuff. But I really like video games. Our co-producer is Greg Miller. He's this big name in the video game world and a YouTube star. And it's been really cool to have him partner up with us to help spread the word on the movie because he's deep in the world of video games. So if there's ever something really exciting and inside that regular folk wouldn't know about, I'll ask him if he has any insights on it, and I'll get the scoop. But I've been a big gamer for a while, and my producing partner Cooper Bebo is working on a script for Sonic the Hedgehog right now. That's just a passion project, but who knows? It could lead to some other really cool things. So we're always looking to try to merge the video game and film worlds together, because I think we've all been burned or disappointed, any video game fans, by some film adaptations in the past. And aside from that, I am getting to be, I would say, a C or C+ level cook, but probably not even that good. So yeah, there's a whole new art form that I've got to go to school for that now.
Nice. What kind of video games do you enjoy playing?
I'm a big, I don't know, I really loved Mario Odyssey that came out just last year, and Breath of the Wild. I haven't played too much, but it's, I don't really want to play it unless I can commit like 5 hours, because it's just such a sprawling, huge open world. But it's fantastic. I've always been a big Nintendo guy, so like the Mario Kart series is good, and I think today they announced there's another Smash Brothers game coming this year.
I did not see that, but nice.
Yeah, there's a really cool video reveal you should check out. I don't know, I'm a huge fan of the Tekken series, and I was playing Cuphead the other day, and so great, just punishing. And I'm still playing Gears of War 4. Something about the Gears multiplayer just feels absolutely perfect to me. I don't know why, but it speaks to me, and I can't wait to play Detroit. I got to buy a PS4 really soon here. There's so many good games coming out for PlayStation this year. So, and of course, whenever Last of Us 2 comes out, I will drop anything I'm doing to play that. So yeah, a mix of the big stuff and some of the little stuff as well. We're actually producing a video game. Cooper is hard at work on a game called Billy Saves the World, which he is it's his baby. He's been working on it for 6 or 7 years now. I'm a pretty hands-off producer on the project, so I'm excited for that to come out. But keep your eyes peeled for that, because that will be our first foray into releasing a video game.
Okay, so what is your involvement on that?
I help with some of the story, and I'm basically there as a script consultant and trying to make some connections. But beyond that, it was more, it's a lot of just us supporting each other on each other's projects. Whenever, someone has something they need a hand on, the other person will put their skill set in to make the project run more smoothly or come out quicker. So, it's just sort of a utility belt of tasks that we can do for one another to earn that producer stamp.
Mm-hmm. That's it, is help out your friends, and
That's the way. Hopefully all your friends do cool shit, and then you can help them, and they'll help you with your cool shit, and then there will be much cool shit for everyone.
So much cool shit for the world, because the world just needs more cool shit.
The world needs all the cool shit.
All the cool shit, man. So, speaking about not cool shit, what is the worst video game movie adaptation?
Oh my god. It's got to be the Super Mario Brothers movie, right? Like
I had a feeling you were gonna say that.
even like preference aside, or like if you love Mario or don't or whatever, like could there even be a worse? Like that might just be one of the worst movies, period, of all time. Not even.
Yeah,
if you thought Resident Evil Extinction didn't live up to your expectations, like fucking watch the Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, right. It's like people
your eyes out.
people complaining about video game movies today is like you didn't have to deal with the early 90s, man.
Oh, dude, it was a rough scene. It was a very rough scene. But that one is just like, I don't know. I don't know if anyone at one point was like, hey, does this feel like insane and frightening and nothing like the video game to anyone? Like, no one spoke up for years until the movie came out. So that one is not only just terrible, but it's like a mystery. Like, I don't even know how a movie got that terrible. No, it's almost The Room or something. It's just bizarre.
See, The Room is, like, hilarious in how terrible it is. When it comes to Mario, it just makes you wonder, is like, have they even ever, like, seen what this is?
Yeah, that is the difference. Like, The Room is still watchable because it's somehow fascinating. But the Mario Brothers movie is like, I can't look at this anymore. Like, I have a headache.
That's it. It's like, I've dealt with Mario Paint, like, Mario RPG was ballin', like, I've dealt with all the Mario sports games, but, like, this just has absolutely nothing to do with Mario.
Yeah, it's super wacky. That one, we may never figure out the origins of that.
I don't think that they ever want to release the origins of that. I think everybody just signed a hush-hush deal.
Yeah, well, there's your next disaster artist right there, the making of that movie.
We'll see if it gets nearly as big. All right, so before I ask you my last question here, Danny, where can people find Heel Kick and where can people find you?
Heel Kick is on iTunes and Amazon and Google Play and a couple other places. Right now, go check it out. You can learn everything you want about Heel Kick at Heel Kick Movie on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want to find me, I'm _Danny Mac on Twitter and Instagram.
All right, awesome. So, as someone who just jumped into his passion and his dreams, what would you have, like, for any words of encouragement for anyone else that possibly wants to do something like that? Pursue writing their own film and actually putting it out themselves and actually going through all that. Because, like we said at the beginning of this, it's really hard and can be really overwhelming when you look at things like budget and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, geez. Well, I would say you need to have a combination of craziness and expectations. For example, when I'm making a movie and I know I want to put everything into it, I'm not just going nuts. When I'm writing the film, I'm keeping budget in mind. When I'm creating my budget and trying to figure out how much post-production will cost, I'm thinking about how many copies of the film I can realistically sell to break even. And that will help inform how big your movie should be, and that will help inform what your business plan will look like when you try to reach out to potential investors. Mm-hmm. At the same time, don't get hung up on the details. If it's a matter of you're not going to make a movie because you're waiting for the stars to align, you should just pull the trigger and find yourself on set and doing something, and then the rest will follow as long as you're somewhat responsible. So I would just say go for it. There's way too many people that talk and wait on other people to give them permission, but you would be surprised what you and a couple of friends could roll up your sleeves and do yourselves. So really anyone can do it. It just requires you to make that decision that you are going to complete this thing.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Hopefully that does something for someone.
All right. I actually have a friend of mine who is starting production on his own film, so I asked that question specifically for him.
Well, I hope that he gets some value out of that. I know yeah, the stars won't always align, but you're gonna have to take off eventually.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Danny.
Hey, it was my pleasure. It was nice talking to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. All right, how awesome was that, you guys? Get out there, get crazy, chase some dreams, do some things, do what you want. Get out there and do the things that you want to do. And I gotta give a huge shout out to Danny Mac for those words of wisdom at the end, and for giving me such a great interview, for sitting down with me and sharing his experiences as an actor, for sharing how he came up with the idea for Heel Kick, and for sharing how he prepared for the film and some of the challenges they went through. For sharing how awesome it was for him to work with that ECCW crew. I haven't been to one of their shows yet, but I plan on making my way down to one of them soon. I hear that they're fantastic. If you're in Vancouver, you should definitely check them out. And if you guys are into comedy, then you guys definitely have to check out Heel Kick Movie. Whether you're checking it out on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Amazon, this movie is absolutely hilarious. Like I told you, it is probably the funniest wrestling movie that is out there on the market. It is actually probably one of the funnier movies I've actually ever seen in my life. It is absolutely hilarious. Like, I can attest, that steroid scene, man. That steroid scene is hilarious. You guys need to see that stuff. So, huge shout out to Danny. Huge shout out to the Thirsty Robot crew and everybody else that was involved. Huge shout out to ECCW. Everybody that was involved in this film, you guys did a great job. I thought it was hilarious. And if you are listening to this, you guys might need to go pick up this film. Alright, I also need to give a big thank you for my sponsors who help me bring you this show once a week, every single week, for free. And I got to thank you guys for supporting those sponsors, because if you didn't, that relationship wouldn't work. So thank you guys for getting out here, for listening to the podcast, for hitting that subscribe button, for supporting our great sponsors, for doing every single thing that you do, for sharing the podcast, for every single thing you guys do. You guys kick ass. I love you. We have listeners all over the world, and you guys are the lifeblood of this podcast. Thank you so much. Alright, as you guys know, we like to end most of our episodes off with a quote. We like to say all of our episodes, but let's face it, I was a little bit lazy in the beginning of doing things, and it's about time that I stepped things up. So that's just me admitting that I have failed, and that's personally okay. But today, our quote is going to be from Václav Havel. Work for something because it is good, not just because it stands the chance to succeed. Alright, everybody, have a great weekend, and if you don't know what to do with your weekend, maybe you should pick up Heel Kick. Alright, everyone, peace out.
The Desert Tiger Podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thanks for listening.